Good morning and welcome to the Cincinnati, USA Regional Chambers Member Benefit Briefing. I'm Beth McNeil, Senior Director of Sales and Engagement, and thank you for joining us this morning. Today's session is aimed to help you and your business navigate the COVID-19 crisis and looking at the Return to Work Plan case study, helping you find solutions for your company as you plan to transition back into the workplace. Today's briefing is spotlighting our partner, Humana. We invite you to share how we can help your business weather the current storm. So please reach out through the Chamber's Business Resource Helpline at 513-579-3111 and sign up for our daily emails at cincinnatiChamber.com. You've joined this briefing in listen-only mode with your microphones muted. Questions for our expert today can be submitted in writing through Zoom's Q&A window. We'll cover as many questions as we can within our 30-minute time frame, and if you've joined us by phone or need to sign off sooner, you can view the full webinar posted at cincinnatiChamber.com within the next day or so. The Cincinnati, USA Regional Chamber is proud to have Humana as a strong legacy partner providing healthcare solutions for our members. Today, I'm very happy to be joined by Tom McMahon from Humana. The Cincinnati, USA Regional Chamber is proud to partner with Humana to provide competitive medical, dental, vision, life, and wellness products to our member companies through Chamber Health. At Humana, they strive to be the leading health and well-being company focused on making it easy for people to achieve their best health through a coordinated care approach. Humana is committed to improving the health of the communities we serve and recently added Cincinnati to their Bold Goal communities. Since 2015, unveiling of its Bold Goal, Humana has focused on addressing the impact that social determinants and health-related social needs such as food insecurity, social isolation, housing quality, and loneliness have on its members and the communities where they reside. Humana uses a health-related quality of life measurement known as Healthy Days to measure its efforts. Through initiatives such as Bold Goal and their culture of wellness, Humana will continue to help their members achieve lifelong well-being. I'm sure you can see why we are excited to share this topic today. It's very timely and very relevant. It's a pleasure working closely with the Humana team and watching their vision for innovation and excellence for our region come to fruition under Tom's leadership. Now, let me tell you a little bit about Tom. Tom joined Humana of May in 2018 as Market Vice President for Kentucky, Indiana, and Ohio. Tom is based in Louisville, Kentucky. Throughout his executive career, Tom has held leadership positions with United Healthcare, ResCare, and Intrepid Bioinformatics. Most recently, as Vice President of Strategic Business Development for United Healthcare, Tom was responsible for leading business development for multi-billion-dollar Medicaid managed care procurements. Highlights of Tom's diverse experience across the healthcare landscape include strategic business development, sales and marketing, mergers and acquisitions, operational leadership, and investment management in settings ranging from home and community care-based, inpatient care, managed care, economic development, and life sciences. Additionally, Tom's expertise in working with a wide array of settings from large matrix organizations to small early-stage communities. Tom also served in his community for nearly 15 years as a volunteer firefighter and emergency medical technician. Tom is a licensed attorney and has his JD, MBA, and Bachelor of Science degrees from the University of Louisville. I think you can agree with Tom's impressive background as well as the very important work being led by Humana that we're in for a very informative discussion today. A reminder that today, the Cincinnati Regional Chamber, we have 11 benefit partners, including Humana, And we offer ways for our members to save money and enhance your business. Please make sure that you look at all of our partners and the opportunities that membership affords you, and look at cincinnati-chamber.com/save to maximize your membership, and be sure to look for COVID offerings that might help with your immediate needs. And a quick note I want to add, if you're interested in receiving information about Humana's services through Chamber Health, or any of the information that you hear Tom cover today, please type your contact information along with your company name in the chat going to the facilitators. Now let's jump into what people are here for: returning to work and health and wellness. So I'd like to welcome Tom McMahon.
Thank you, Beth. Good morning, everybody. Thanks so much for joining us today. It really is a pleasure to work with the team at the Cincinnati Chamber. We've had a long and meaningful partnership with the Cincinnati Chamber for well over 20 years, and it's just a great organization. And I obviously have a bit of a soft spot in my heart for chambers of commerce and economic development. I used to work in a chamber and work in economic development, so it's really nice to be able to partner with the team at the Cincy Chamber and to serve you all. So we've organized some comments today relative to return to work, I guess more specifically, return to working in spaces together with each other. We didn't stop working at Humana. Our team certainly has been extremely busy. I know the same is true for many of you, and although some have had to shut down and some have had to slow down, I know that everybody's been working hard one way or the other. The presentation's organized in kind of two segments. The first part is a case study on how Humana had looked at the opportunities to improve social distancing and a whole just variety of other things. So we'll share some of that in the first part. And then the second part is a little bit more focused on some thoughts we're sharing with folks on, another just sort of whole area of just how people are feeling about the crisis, how they're dealing with it personally, and some resources there. So I'll jump into the presentation that you see on the screen today. And thanks. I'll just move to this. So there's a couple things that we'll flash on the screen, like this slide. Obviously, this is stuff everybody knows, but it starts to kind of build the case for how we look at things. So if you don't mind, hit the next slide. That'd be great. So this is the description of the project here at Humana that we organized around returning to our physical locations, and so that you can see the overview there. And by the way, just a quick note on my style with presentations, I try never to read what's on the screen. I just try to add a little bit of extra information to it and some context, and so I won't go through those in case you're wondering why I'm not doing that. But in any case, so the project overview is there, and then just some of the ground taken since then. What I want to focus in on is, as you see under ground taken, these 8 work streams. And I know 8's a lot. I always say that span of control is anywhere from 3 to 7 things, and in a conversation, it's usually best to be closer to the 3 than the 7. But all 8 are really important, so we will spend a little time on those. And I think that's really the meat and potatoes of what we're doing. So here they are, and they aren't necessarily organized in terms of which one to start with. I think what we had was really just a team put together that sat down and thought about what are the different areas we need to address and how can we address them, and then teams were assembled under each of these 8 categories. Now, I fully appreciate that, we're an organization whose job is to plan things. We're called a health plan for a reason. And so we have people with lots of project management and planning capabilities. It may be that, you run a business like I used to run that had 5 employees, and you can still do this, there's no question. And that's where we thought maybe this is helpful, because our folks had spent a lot of time figuring out what the different categories were. And of course, the first one is just the framework for how you're going to make these decisions and what needs to be discussed. I mean, some locations, manufacturing, for example, have some, much more complicated needs than, what typically ours is an office-based environment. We do have some clinical facilities with physicians and nurses serving patients face-to-face. We do have mailroom, for example. Regulatory requirements are focused on how quickly we open the mail and answer it. So those things were a little more complicated, but I think there are others probably on the call today whose physical locations are even more complicated than ours. So this may not cover every aspect, but I would say the big ones here are really the decision framework, and then on the other end of the spectrum, communications. It's one thing to set a good plan, and I think we have a good plan, but the communication is really complex and challenging. So Spencer, if you could hit the next slide, that'd be great. Just a quick note on this, I think it probably, is something most folks would think about, is just being agile, flexible, and taking feedback in as you go. I think agile is, primarily thought of in the software development world, where instead of developing the whole software and then releasing it and seeing how it goes, which, has been the model in the past, there's certainly a lot more focus on stopping along the way, getting feedback, making sure they're going in the right direction. So, that's some of the ways we were able to get some of the feedback are listed there. So next slide, please. This, again, nothing really complex here. We just wanted to put things into phases in terms of, which we're going to be handled first, and then second, third, fourth, and fifth. So as you can see, obviously we're prioritizing where we have regulations we have to follow, and as sort of the first area of business. The other thing that I'll mention that's not in any of these slides, but I think is really important in how we were able to set a plan, is that, many of our associates already had the capability to work at home. Many of them didn't work at home, but they had the capability in terms of, if you just take that computer, pick it up and plug it in the wall at home, you've got Wi-Fi, and or you can get it pretty fast, and we're using keyboards and computer screens. And so that's really the primary method of completing much of our work, along with, telephone. And so while it may not be an ideal situation for some who don't have a home office, for example, I know my sister-in-law and brother-in-law are, respectively sharing the kitchen and the dining room, for their work. And it's not ideal, but it was something they're capable of really quickly. And a lot of people are. And I appreciate that not every work environment is something that you can just move like that. And so everyone's situation is certainly much different than ours, but we do have about 46,000 associates, and about 2,000 of those do work in the mailroom, or they work in a clinical setting, and so they're still at work in the office today, but the other folks are not. And that was a pretty compelling thing to watch. I think within something like 3 to 4 business days, we went from thousands and thousands of people, in an office setting, well, tens of thousands, to they're all home, and that was pretty stunning. So, but again, it's the nature of our work really helped us in that regard. So next slide, please. Nothing here you probably haven't heard or wouldn't have thought up on your own. The only thing that I didn't think of on my own that we put in here is people need to walk one way in the hallways now. So arrows or stickers or things like that on the carpet, just pointing folks in the right direction, so you can diminish that that contact. So that was the only one that stood out for me that maybe I probably hadn't thought of on my own. So next slide, please. So this is what we came up with. I thought this might be helpful. We certainly can see the big change here. It's dining from 72 people in the same space. It's 20 people in that same space. We by the way, aren't doing this yet. This is just, what we think makes sense in our office spaces. And I say we aren't doing it yet because we aren't back at the office yet. You can see the elevators there as well as the restrooms. So I just hope that this kind of document is a little bit helpful in terms of your own plans. Next slide, please. And the last thing I'll say in this series of slides is the OSHA and CDC resources were really, really helpful. And I've said this on calls before, it will surprise you to see how both those organizations have been able to develop recommendations that are specific and actionable. You can actually click those links when we send this document out, or you can get on their websites pretty quickly. You can see the names there. There's a lot there, and a lot of what you see in our case study came from those resources. So it really is OSHA's job to help with workplace safety, obviously, and so it does make a lot of sense. And other thing I've emphasized is as complicated and confusing as things are, especially healthcare. There is an organizing scheme for this. It's not always obvious, but and sometimes it's also difficult to manage. But there is a scheme. There is a way that we've organized our healthcare system, and there's a way we've organized work through OSHA and safety, and there's a way we've organized public health and response to pandemics. So, that all exists. And of course, certainly nobody anticipated we deploy them, and they've had to stretch in ways they didn't anticipate. But those systems do exist, and they're doing a lot of really good work. So that's it for this series of slides. I again just hope it's helpful. I realize our environment's a little different, and we had some capability of getting people to home pretty quickly that others might not have. But to the degree that some of this logic and process is helpful, and if you don't mind, Spencer, if we can go back just real quickly to the slide with those 8 sections on it. It's a couple more back. There you go, right there. So again, to the degree this is helpful to you all, I wanted to emphasize the 8 categories we came up with, and I encourage you to use these to your advantage. And then if there are other things that you think you need to add or subtract, then please do that. But I hope it's helpful. So Spencer, let's switch over to the other slide deck. So this is a document we put together that summarizes a wide array of resources. We'll go through some. There's a lot here, and I'll just emphasize a few things. But next slide, please. So Tim State is one of our HR leaders. One thing I hadn't thought as much about as I should is that Humana, we consume our own service in terms of our healthcare, health insurance products. And so Tim and his colleagues are actually the folks that, as you would say, they run our health plan for all of our associates and their dependents. And so they've got a lot of experience in how to support a workforce, how to engage a workforce. And Tim did a webinar that, these webinars are still recorded like this is going to be, and they're available on our website. We'll send you a summary, by the way, of those, so you don't have to go clicking around and looking for them. But he did a webinar on the same topic, and there's another one that's going to come up as well. So lots of resources there, and again, not just as a health insurance company, but as a company that's trying to engage people in their health and well-being. So his team also has a lot to do with the Bold Goal initiative that Beth mentioned, which is a really exciting initiative. The metric is healthy days, which is really just how many days does someone report when asked that they felt healthy in the last month. And much like I mentioned earlier, there's an organizing scheme around all these things. 20 or so years ago, the CDC decided they should do a survey of how people feel, emotionally and physically. And so they do this phone survey every month, and they've done it for, like I said, 20 years. And one of the questions is, how many days did you feel healthy last month? So that's the number we wanted to impact. And in Cincinnati and Northern Kentucky, we're now launching a Bold Goal. We do these on a market by market basis, as opposed to making it a large sort of national, initiative, because it's just, healthcare is local and community supports are different in different places. And frankly, Ohio is different than Kentucky in how they're organized and providing supports. And so, what they'll start is a process to engage community organizations in the Bold Goal program. And what it'll eventually lead to is a community-wide, what we call health advisory board. And, that would be comprised of all sorts of organizations that serve people's mental and physical and emotional and financial well-being. And they get together and talk about solutions. So it's a great program. I'm excited that we're going to bring it to Cincinnati, Northern Kentucky. So back onto the topic. This care kit, again, is really robust, and it's got a whole array of things from your own sort of work at home process to things for kids and the like. So if you go to the next slide, that'd be great. So a lot here, organized into 4 categories, and each of these things is a link. And so, we won't obviously go through all that, but just trying to give some advice on getting sort of in the mode for work at home. Our team, specifically my team, had already worked in the field pretty much every day. So they were used to a lot of this kind of thing. We've had for probably, 4 or 5 years now. There's about 50 people on my team, and I think all of them have a laptop, and most have a cell phone, and probably 90% of them are, field-based. So, and me included. So it was, easy for us to get into this. But there's still more to it, even if you're used to working at home occasionally. So next slide, please. And one more slide. So we've got 6 categories of things here that I wanted to talk about. It's no accident that more than one of these is talking about your emotional and mental state. I would say 4 of the 6 here probably are talking about that. We get a lot of questions about mental health resources, and the rapid shift to telehealth, I think, has been a really good thing for folks. Mental health has been part of telehealth for a while. Most companies have an employee assistance program. That's actually always been a telehealth program when you think about it, because you called a phone number for your employee assistance. And so now, of course, if you want to select a therapist or a psychiatrist and or at least sort of get introduced to what's out there for mental health counseling, it's really easy to do on a telehealth kind of situation. So I encourage people to do that. It's I think it's also true that most carriers are either waiving certain fees for clinical care, and that typically includes mental health along with physical health. They're not waiving all fees, and all kind of that gets complicated, but it just kind of, there are some situations where that barrier has been reduced or eliminated too. So but the resources here, I think, are been really good. So I encourage the folks to send these to your teams, look at some of these resources yourself, see what you prefer, and I would say look at every insurance company's website, not just Humana's. Lots and lots of assistance is available out there, and I would say take advantage of all that you can. Next slide, please. And one more slide. So we actually have, I think, 6 different documents that this one summarizes. So there's, again, a whole bunch out there. I'm lucky in my family situation. My youngest is 13, and my oldest is 17, and I got a 14-year-old in the middle. And so we don't have as much work to do to help them with their non-traditional instruction, as it was called, the electronic version. But summer has started for them officially now. It still takes a little work, but certainly, I've seen people with kindergartners and ages like that, and it's just a ton of work for the parents to get the kids engaged. And in any case, we're doing what we can here. I know this is that's hard work. So next slide, please. Great. So that's a wrap with the prepared comments. Certainly excited to answer any questions I can, and if there's something I haven't answered for today, then we'll do our best to follow up and get you an answer. So Beth, any questions?
Terrific, yes, and thank you, Tom. Tremendous information. You did a great job in getting through a lot of information in a short period of time. We will post this information on the Chamber's website. So please come back, and Humana will be providing us information on a regular basis. We do have one question that came in for you, Tom. In the interest of time, I'll stick to this one. We had several. What has been the most challenging part of Humana to put together the return to work plan?
Well, I think just figuring out the framework and getting the teams, and that, I think that's something we do that a lot. Like I said, we're sort of a planning and organizing kind of a business. It's the speed that we had to do it, while still making sure that we weren't introducing new risks into the scenario. So I'm super impressed with what our team has been able to do. This is as we like to say, it's a huge lift. It's a huge lift to do something like this, and all the while they're trying to make plans and be effective, the timeline seems to escalate, and the issues seem to pile on top of each other. So I think that just meeting the deadlines and the timelines probably really made it more difficult. Really, like I said before, our situation is a little simpler. So much of the work we do is done by people that are sitting behind a computer screen, and that just makes all this a lot easier. But none of it's easy by a long shot, that's for sure.
There's a quick follow-up question. What has been the most challenging part for Humana to put together the return to work plan? Because I know a lot of members, and you alluded to this in your discussion, we have small businesses, anywhere from 2 to 20 companies, and then we have large corporations. Regardless of the size, returning to work is a complex issue. that require a lot of departments and a lot of folks to work together. What has been the most challenging part for Humana to put a program together like to get back to work?
I think one of the things that's been really tough and is it's not just about us. So our company probably more than others is out in front with the customers, and so we had a wide array of questions from our our partners in human resources and benefits administration at our clients and the agents we work with. So understanding their asks, predicting some of them before they ask them, and getting a decision on what we think makes the most amount of sense to deliver back to the client and to their agent, but then also getting it approved. We're a highly regulated industry. There are many things that we may think are good ideas, but if you filed a health plan with a state and it's got rules around it, you need to follow them. And there's also a wide array of other laws like ERISA and the like. So making sure that you have a decision matrix that allows for the questions that are being asked, but then also addressing all of those regulatory issues, business rules, as we call them. Behind the scenes, we have business rules, which enable using technology to support our clients. And so, again, we might think something's a good idea, but in order to actually execute on that and not cause a failure in the system is a really complicated thing. So that's been a real challenge. It is what we do for a living. So don't get me wrong. It's not that that we were surprised by that challenge, but again, the volume of things, the speed that things needed to be decided with, the urgency in people's voices about, can I keep people on my health plan if they've been furloughed and they're not actively at work? And that answer for the industry changed to yes, but the answer before this crisis was no, and it was it was just a pretty impressive effort to be able to see that kind of thing get pulled off. But definitely a challenge, but no question about it. And probably, in my memory, in the last 3 months, that was probably the most urgent thing we solved for.
Well, I thank you, Tom. It is always a pleasure to talk with you. I am so glad that our members, our partners, our sponsors, and everyone today got to hear everything that you had to share. We would love to have you back for another discussion. Humana is doing great work. And just this 30-minute window was just a snippet of the information that Humana has prepared. So thank you, Tom, for taking time on what I know is a very busy week. We're all exceptionally busy, and thank you for everyone who tuned in today, to our members, our partners, and our sponsors. I'd like to give a special thank you and shout out to Spencer Mapes, who's our producer behind the scenes, who makes everything possible today. And also, we have some additional briefings. If you like what you heard today, we have some briefings that are listed here on the screen, and one that I'd like to highlight. Please make sure, we are very honored to have Dr. Schrank, Humana's Chief Medical Officer, will be back with us on June 25th for an hour-long discussion. I guarantee you this is one that you need to put on your calendar. There's going to be tons of information, and hopefully, Tom, we can have you back as well. We'd love to get you scheduled in July to share more information with our members. So if you're interested in maximizing your membership or just learning about membership or Humana Health, please go to CincinnatiChamber.com or call us at 513-579-3111. We'd love to be able to help with whatever your needs are, whatever the wide variety of needs are. We're here focused to serve solving problems for our members and for our future members as well. So Tom, thank you for your time. Spencer, thank you for all your skill and expertise behind the scenes, and thank you for everyone attending. Stay connected, stay encouraged. Have a great day.
Thanks, Beth. Thanks, Spencer.
Thanks, Tom.
Appreciate everybody joining. Have a great day.